Hi, today we're going to learn about another type of landform. We're going to learn about valleys. Here's our table of contents. Remember, the table of contents is a nonfiction text feature that helps us see how a book is organized. We're going to have Chapter 1, Land Between the Hills, Chapter 2, Forming a Valley, Chapter 3, Valleys Change, Landforms of the World, the Nile River Valley, and Chapter 4, Life in the Valley. Land Between the Hills. This that you see right here is not the title of a book. This would be known as a heading. A heading is often the name of like a chapter, or it gives us more information about a change in the book when they change topics. So this one is the name of a chapter, and it is also a topic, Land Between the Hills. Snow covers the tops of two steep hills. The rocky land slopes down to a river. The river rolls over rocks. It flows down the hill, carving out a V shape. Grass grows in the dark soil. The flat bottom is a valley. And yes, you can read this caption if you want to know more about the photograph. A valley is a low area of land. This land is often between mountains or hills. Usually, a river or a stream runs through a valley. All valleys take the shape of a V or a U. Valleys are found on all continents on Earth. They also exist on the ocean floor. There are several kinds of valleys. Each type is formed in a different way. A fun fact: if a river valley becomes very deep, it is sometimes called a canyon or a gorge. Again, I recommend if you want to know what this photograph is, read the caption in blue underneath it. Chapter 2, we have another heading, Forming a Valley. Some valleys are V-shaped. These valleys are narrow. They have steep sides. V-shaped valleys are formed by rivers. Many rivers begin on mountaintops. Snow melts and water flows downhill. Again, if you want to see what this photograph is, read the caption over here in blue. As it flows, the water erodes the rock. Slowly, a V shape forms between the hills. This process takes millions of years. Some valleys are U-shaped. These valleys form in very cold mountain climates. The snow on the mountains melts in the summer. During the winter months, it freezes again. This process happens over and over. It forms a huge chunk of ice called a glacier. It takes thousands of years for a glacier to form. Then the glacier creeps slowly down the mountainside. Fun fact: water flows fastest down steep mountains. The faster the water flows, the deeper the valley it makes. As it moves, the heavy ice grinds away the rock. When the glacier melts, a U-shaped valley is left behind. This type of valley has a curved bottom and steep sides. Earth's crust is made up of huge pieces of rock. These pieces are called tectonic plates. They are always moving, but they move very slowly. When two plates move apart, molten rock comes out between them. This rock hardens when it cools. New flat land forms between the plates. This land is a rift valley. Fun fact: the bottom of the sea has many rift valleys. Chapter 3, Valleys Change. River valleys begin as narrow paths through the mountains. The moving water cuts into the rock. The water carries away sediment as it moves. Much of this sediment ends up in the valley. Again, you can read the captions in blue. Over time, soft soil builds up along the river's banks. Sometimes the river flows over its banks. This process is called flooding. The flood water eventually goes away, but the soil stays behind. This process makes the river wider too. Water in wide rivers moves more slowly, and slower water causes less erosion at the river's bottom. Instead, the water grinds into the soft soil at the river's sides. One side might erode faster. If that side caves in, water moves in and sweeps away the loose dirt. On the other side, the water moves slowly. It can't carry the sediment, so it builds up. The new land forms a bend in the river. This process takes many years. It happens at different places along the river's path. In time, the river zigzags back and forth. Over many years, the valley becomes flatter and wider. Go ahead and read the caption underneath the photograph. The fun fact: sometimes a river's zigzags begin to touch. Soil builds up where they touch. It separates one bend from the river. The bend becomes an oxbow lake. Landforms of the world, the Nile River Valley. The Nile River is one of the longest rivers in the world. It flows more than 4,200 miles, or 6,800 kilometers, through Africa. The river floods for at least 6 months every year. Watercolor covers the Nile River Valley. It leaves behind a rich layer of soil. Long ago, farmers learned how to use this pattern to grow crops. They dug ditches near the Nile. These ditches moved water into their fields. They grew wheat and cotton. Many cities that were built along the Nile River long ago are still there today. Chapter 4: Life in the Valley. A river flowing through a valley deposits sediment. Silt and clay build up over many years. The soil in a valley contains minerals from the eroded rock. This makes the soil there good for growing grass. See if you can find a moose kind of camouflaged in the picture. The grass supplies food for animals that live there. Otters, beavers, and deer all live in valleys. Fish, frogs, and snakes live in a valley's river and nearby streams. Meat-eating birds such as eagles feed on these creatures. Worms and insects live in the soil. They are food for birds such as crows, robins, and blue jays. The fertile valley soil is good for growing crops. Farmers plant corn, wheat, and soybeans. They also grow hay for cattle and sheep. Fun fact: soil is formed when rocks are broken down by wind, water, or ice. Some farmers grow grapes and berries in rich valley soil. The soil in valleys supports many kinds of life. Without this soil, there would be few plants, and without plants, animals would not survive. Food from plants supply many things with the energy they need to live. For this reason, valleys are an important landform. Fun fact: researchers believe that people have been farming rice in the Yangtze River Valley for at least 8,000 years. It's a long time. And then finally, we're at the end. I'm not going to take the time to go. You don't have to do the answers on here. If you wanted to, you could do the questions. We have a glossary, so if there's anything that you are unsure of, here are the keywords that are important for you understanding more about valleys. And there's our index, and that completes our book on valleys.